Fuzhu, a 20-year-old girl, was still in high school. During class, she casually munched on sunflower seeds and read comics. Eventually, she and her classmate, Xiao Ju, got caught and had to stand outside for punishment because they were sharing the comics. After school, the teacher asked the class monitor to check Fuzhu's bag for other forbidden items. While they were struggling, Fuzhu accidentally gave the class monitor a memorable experience. At this point, there was nothing more important than running away. Fuzhu grabbed her backpack, took off, and before running, she didn't forget to say it was all an accident and begged for forgiveness. She ran into the bathroom, but it was the men's bathroom. However, the class monitor was hot on her heels, and she couldn't escape. Just then, the lights flickered, and something strange happened with the toilet. Boom! Fuzhu was transported from the modern men's bathroom to an ancient men's bathroom. Even though she landed in a pit of waste, because of the superstitious beliefs of that time, people thought she was a heavenly fairy. She literally fell from the sky. The Empress Dowager even personally named her a celestial maiden. Looking around at the strange yet familiar scene, Fuzhu realized she had actually been transported into the comic book she was reading in class. The scariest thing was that the Emperor looked exactly like the class monitor. Frightened, Fuzhu fainted. When she woke up, she was surrounded by a group of maids, all kneeling before her and calling her a heavenly fairy. Fuzhu knelt down and returned the salute. She noticed a maid who looked exactly like her best friend, Xiao Ju, but the maid insisted she was Lan Er, not Xiao Zhu. The girl who had been transported into the pit of waste had to bathe for 3 days and 3 nights to get rid of the stench, and she was being treated like a goddess in this era. Although she was being pampered and treated like royalty, Fuzhu still thought about returning to the modern world. As she changed into a new set of clothes, she came up with a plan to go back the way she came. She asked Lan Er where the bathroom was, and they went together, but neither of them had the courage to jump down. Sitting there waiting was pointless. Fuzhu suddenly remembered, according to the comic book, tonight the Emperor would castrate himself. The class monitor would become a eunuch. It would be a waste not to watch such a great event. She sneaked to the Emperor's palace, carefully opening a small crack in the door. As she peeked in, she saw a stunningly beautiful woman forcing the Emperor to marry her. The Emperor refused to submit. The woman said, "Even if you pass away, I will be buried with you." Fuzhu apologized for interrupting, and then ran to the bathroom, ready to return to the modern world. But before the Emperor could do anything, Fuzhu appeared, disrupting the good show. Fuzhu opened her eyes and found herself back, but in front of her was the Emperor, sword in hand, ready to execute her. It turned out she had only fainted from the stench and hadn't actually returned to the modern world successfully. Ruan Qing then brought medicine for Fuzhu's wounds, but she refused to take it. After the Emperor left, Fuzhu whispered to Ruan Qing that they were in the same boat and asked when she would deal with the Emperor. Ruan Qing initially pretended to be weak, but when Fuzhu told a series of stories about Ruan Qing and her father's rebellious acts, Ruan Qing decided to take her out to silence her. If Ruan Qing didn't help, after she was eliminated, the crimes of Ruan Qing and her father would be exposed to the world. Then they would become a hot search topic. These ancient people wouldn't understand what that means. Regardless, it sounded scary. This heavenly fairy was certainly no ordinary person. The imperial advisor sent his subordinates to investigate. Fuzhu then successfully switched identities and snuck out, but almost fell into the lake. Luckily, Prince Yun Li came to her rescue, but unexpectedly, Fuzhu repaid his kindness with spite, unintentionally causing Yun Li to fall into the water while she stayed safe and dry. Before she could say anything, Fuzhu ran away quickly, but was mistaken for a eunuch and taken to work in the middle of the night. The next morning, when she woke up, she was facing the Emperor with his familiar sword. Fuzhu embraced the Emperor's legs and cried miserably. But the Emperor wasn't there to rescue her, but to make her keep her promise to help the country become prosperous. Fuzhu didn't know what to do. At this critical moment, she remembered her teacher's teachings and quickly asked for a map. She would show them where to make money. An attendant brought the map, but it looked strange. The golden hour had arrived. The Emperor drew his sword and advanced toward Fuzhu, ready to execute her for impersonating a heavenly fairy. As the tip of the sword flew towards her, Yun Li stepped forward to block the sword for her. The king also came to rescue Fuzhu. The officials, seeing this, immediately changed their tune. Fuzhu launched into a speech. What is this about building a heavenly mansion nation? A flourishing nation? A secret that cannot be revealed? The officials, seeing this, knelt down and begged Fu Zhu. If the secret couldn't be revealed, it could only be passed on to the emperor alone. Thanks to this, Fu Zhu was spared. Fu Zhu was as if she was reborn and returned to her room. The Empress Dowager specially gave her a table full of delicacies, making Fu Zhu's eyes light up. If she could receive such treatment for the rest of her life, why bother going back to the modern world? The food was delicious, but she couldn't eat more than 3 bites because she was afraid of being poisoned. But Fu Zhu was no ordinary person. She wasn't afraid of being poisoned. Normally, she ate cafeteria food every day. Now she finally had the chance to improve her life. She had to take this opportunity to eat to her heart's content. She also asked Lan Er to eat with her. After being a maid for more than a decade, this was the first time Lan Er had felt the happiness of being able to sit at a table and eat. In no time, the two of them had finished all the plates. Unable to resist, they were taken to the imperial kitchen. The imperial chefs were all amazed, but not surprised because their culinary skills were superb. After the meal came a tour around the palace. Fu Zhu bumped into Yun Li. As soon as they met, he demanded repayment for saving her. What Yun Li wanted was for Fu Zhu to tell him stories about the heavens. A moment later, Fu Zhu was like a monkey climbing a high mountain, talking to the maids kneeling on the ground, telling them about the modern world, making the emperor, who was eavesdropping and jealous. It should be known that in ancient times, women were easily sold and treated like slaves. But the modern world was different. What's more, there were no eunuchs in the modern world, no kings either. But she didn't know how to explain it in a way that everyone would believe. The Empress Dowager heard the news and questioned her. Yun Li immediately took all the responsibility, saying he had forced Fu Zhu to tell stories here. Yun Li was punished by being confined to his quarters, and Fu Zhu would have to learn how to speak from Ruanqing. The next day, the emperor and his guards were busy studying the heavenly fairy, staring at her backpack for a long time. The guard said, "This thing sometimes makes a strange noise." The emperor had just approached when he was startled. It turned out to be the alarm on the phone in the backpack going off. The emperor quickly told the guard to open the backpack, but the ancient people had never seen a zipper before. They pulled it back and forth for a long time, but couldn't open it. Finally, they used a sword to cut it open. "Stop! This is my backpack." Fu Zhu rushed in, zipped open the backpack, and turned off the alarms set for 5 and 6 o'clock. The ancient girl took out her phone, scaring the emperor, who jumped back. But she was confused. This was just a phone. Was it also a heavenly treasure? Fu Zhu opened her backpack, ready to open the minds of these ancient people, to let them see technology and modernity. She generously offered a Chinese spicy snack. The emperor was afraid it was poisonous, so he asked the guard to try it first. The guard, prepared to sacrifice himself, could already feel his mouth watering just from the smell. After tasting a bite, he was even more astonished. This thing could only be found in heaven. The emperor ate until his mouth was full of oil, and he couldn't stop, directly snatching the rest of Fu Zhu's portion. In no time, they both had their mouths burning. The guard poured 3 drops of Coca-Cola into his mouth, but he couldn't taste anything. Unexpectedly, a whole bottle of Coca-Cola disappeared quickly. "Do you have any more treasures?" "That's it, only that much." "You can't eat all of it." The emperor pouted, continuing to eat the spicy snack, drink Coca-Cola, and eat, and suddenly exclaimed, "If all the people in the world could eat this delicious food, that would be great." To show gratitude for Fu Zhu's spicy snack and Coca-Cola, the emperor threw a banquet for her to eat and drink to her heart's content. He didn't touch a single thing himself. He had no appetite. Fu Zhu, seeing this, drew a shape on the table and instructed the eunuch to make it, guaranteed to make the emperor enjoy his meal. "That's too big. What is this?" "A hot pot." Fu Zhu expertly made the dipping sauce. She quickly picked up a large piece of meat, dipped it in the hot pot, put it in her mouth, and it was so delicious she stomped her feet. The emperor followed her example and dipped a piece of meat, but just as he was about to eat it, the eunuch stopped him. "Your Majesty, perhaps this servant should try it first?" Fu Zhu urged the emperor, "Just eat it all, you can't die." After the emperor tasted it, he couldn't stop eating. At this time, the imperial chef from the imperial kitchen was called in to observe the strange dish he had never seen before. The emperor only ate what he cooked. Did this Fu Zhu want to take over his position? Suddenly, he saw Lan Er next to Fu Zhu, and the imperial chef was instantly enraged. Ruanqing, seeing the two of them so close, instantly had a wicked idea. The next day, Fu Zhu enthusiastically guided the emperor on how to build the heavenly mansion nation. But the emperor pulled out his phone and asked why it wasn't lit up anymore. Fu Zhu discovered that the limited edition keychain on her phone was suddenly gone. It turned out the emperor was holding it, but because of his pride, he couldn't admit it. He could only hang it on a tree, waiting for Fu Zhu to find it. But then the pot was taken away by the eunuch, and finally the keychain fell into the river. And the one who had to go looking for it was the emperor. Ruan Qing saw this scene and was so envious her eyes were sparkling. The position of empress could only be hers. On the other hand, the emperor got a cold because of the water. Fu Zhu felt guilty and went to visit him to take care of him. At this time, Yun Li was released from his confinement. Fu Zhu specially made a banquet to welcome him back. The ancient people were astonished and enlightened when they first tasted fried chicken and hamburgers, constantly praising Fu Zhu for being a truly descended heavenly fairy. While they were enjoying the meal, Ruan Qing suddenly appeared, bringing with her a lot of gold, silver and jewels to bribe Fu Zhu. Fu Zhu felt she had nothing to give in return, so she wanted to invite Ruan Qing to stay and eat fried chicken and drink Coca-Cola. Ruan Qing used the excuse that she was on a diet and said she wanted to have a heart-to-heart with Fu Zhu, chasing Yun Li away. It turned out this time she wanted to win her over first, then turn on her later, using her father's position as imperial advisor to threaten Fu Zhu into working for her. She wanted Fu Zhu to matchmake her and the emperor, but in the modern era, freedom of love was valued, and Fu Zhu didn't want to force anyone. As a result, Ruan Qing misunderstood her and thought she also liked the emperor. Fu Zhu denied it, saying she had no feelings for the emperor. Ruan Qing was very good at relying on her father. If you don't help me, I'll go home and tell my father to come teach you a lesson. Afraid, Fu Zhu quickly yielded. All right then. Thank you, Heavenly Fairy. Don't call me older sister. We are good sisters now. Your affairs, I'll take care of them. In the evening, when she went to see the emperor, she was asked by him to come up with a plan to avoid marrying Ruan Qing. Receiving such a troublesome task made Fu Zhu very headache. She was considered stupid at school, but after being transported here, she was considered a genius, and everyone relied on her for everything. Thinking too much exhausted her brain, so she wanted to reward herself with a barbecue at the Imperial Garden. Yun Li suddenly appeared out of nowhere, so the party of 2 had to be expanded to 3. They were all eating happily, completely unaware that a fire had broken out behind them. The emperor, observing the night sky in the palace, was immediately informed by a eunuch. Oh no, the Imperial Garden is on fire. As expected, they were arrested on suspicion. The guard reported. Besides Ruan Qing, no one was injured. Speaking of Ruan Qing, because she was worried that the fire would spread, she rushed straight into the flames, and as a result, fainted. They immediately wanted to convict Fu Zhu. The prince wanted to take the blame, but the Empress Dowager immediately covered his mouth. Fu Zhu was about to confess, but Lan Er suddenly knelt down before the emperor and took all the blame. At everyone's request, Lan Er escaped the fate of being eliminated, but was still flogged dozens of times. Fu Zhu was taking off Lan Er's clothes to apply ointment when the guard, Hong Yi, suddenly entered with medicine. The atmosphere immediately became awkward. Heavenly Fairy, the emperor ordered this subordinate to bring medicine to Lady Lan Er. At this point, Lan Er really wanted to disappear. Heavenly Fairy, her bum was seen by him, she must marry him. That's a bit too much. This kind of thinking wouldn't work in our modern times. So, doctors examine 800 patients every day. Does that mean they could take 800 wives? The imperial chef heard that the imperial garden was on fire, and that the culprit was his goddess, Lan Er, and his attitude became extremely flattering. I didn't expect such a small lady to be able to do something so earth-shattering. It really makes us ashamed. Look at that little lady. She dared to set fire to the imperial garden, while we big men can only play with fire in the kitchen. What a hero among women. The assistant chef, hearing this, had to sigh. You're really the king of flattery. At this time, the wicked Ruan Qing had bribed the imperial physician and pretended to be seriously injured from rushing into the fire, clearly wanting to take advantage of the situation. When the maid Bai Er brought her porridge, she was slapped by Ruan Qing. Then she ordered Bai Er to call Fu Zhu to meet her. Bai Er dared to say only one sentence. It's already dark, before she received another slap. Bai Er had just entered the door when she saw the two of them being so affectionate. The heavenly fairy was even feeding the maid, while her own master treated her badly. She was so envious that she was furious. Bai Er then called Fu Zhu to see Ruan Qing with a sarcastic tone. Lan Er is unhappy. She wants to see you. Bai Er was arrogant again, taking advantage of Ruan Qing's power to put on airs. My master will be the empress in the future. Lan Er couldn't help but retort sarcastically. Seeing that the two were about to fight, Fu Zhu quickly picked up a large piece of fried chicken to bribe Bai Er. Bai Er returned and finally didn't call Fu Zhu over. Ruan Qing was also very perceptive and immediately realized something was wrong. Why is your mouth greasy? Then came another slap. So where did Fu Zhu go? She went to comfort the emperor, who was feeling sad late at night. Fu Zhu kept muttering, I want to go home. Although I can eat well and dress well here, and I don't have to do a lot of homework, but there's no phone, no internet, no friends or family. Our modern world is still better. Her words made the emperor even more sad. Maybe this is fate, what do you think? Every time the emperor was about to fall asleep, he was awakened by her snoring. He was truly shocked to think, how could a little girl make such a loud sound? It was so noisy that he could only change directions to sleep. As a result, this time a smelly foot was directly pointed at his face. The emperor was sleeping soundly when he was suddenly awakened by the smell of stinky feet. He quickly pushed it aside with a disgusted expression. After putting her foot back in place, he carefully put the pillow under Fu Zhu's head. Then the emperor went out and then came back with a basin of water and a towel. Hong Yi and the eunuchs outside whispered about the emperor washing the heavenly fairy's feet. These two gossipy men peeked through the crack in the door to see. Early in the morning, Ruan Qing went to her father to ask why Fu Zhu didn't come yesterday. Not finding Fu Zhu, Ruan Qing was furious with Lan Er, wanting to slap her mouth until Fu Zhu appeared. The imperial chef came to deliver the meal, just in time to catch his goddess being bullied. Ruan Qing was also startled. Oh dear, this is bad. My weak and gentle image is ruined. Seeing this scene of infighting in the palace, the two little chefs didn't dare intervene. The imperial chef immediately pretended to be ill, and the assistant chef quickly cooperated to perform a play to scare Ruan Qing and her maid away. After Ruan Qing left, they ended their act and stood up to salute Lan Er. Fu Zhu returned, and seeing Lan Er being punished, immediately wanted to step in and defend her. Good sisters, this is the importance of following the right master. Fu Zhu took up a weapon and wanted to go find Ruan Qing to settle the score. But the next second, she saw the mistress who had her father as her backer, and instantly went limp, turning to run away. But she was suddenly called by name. Being called, Fu Zhu had to turn around and greet the imperial advisor. He didn't bother talking much to her, directly asking her what she was holding a knife for. Fu Zhu hesitated for a long time, not knowing how to explain. She said she was practicing cooking, but Ruan Qing immediately exposed her. Then I say I'm going to perform variety shows. Would you believe me? The imperial advisor immediately took the opportunity. I've seen people swallow swords before. Do you want to perform a sword-swallowing act? Heavenly fairy? It's not like that. I want to perform a trick where I catch a blade without using my hands. It's where everyone throws it at me. But it's too bloody. I'm sure you two wouldn't want to see such a bloody scene. Fu Zhu found an excuse to leave, but the imperial advisor didn't give her the chance. We're not afraid of blood. We want you to catch a blade without using your hands. Bai Er even stepped forward and volunteered to throw the knife. They were intentionally making things difficult for Fu Zhu. She could only grit her teeth and endure. Being cut by a knife is still better than being executed. Bai Er was about to throw the knife, looking like she was about to split Fu Zhu's head like a watermelon. The emperor appeared just in time. The guard swung his sword to knock the knife away, saving the troublemaking girl in the nick of time. The prince arrived late, standing between the two of them like a giant light bulb. Lan Er was also attracted by the guard's handsome appearance, her eyes sparkling. Too bad the imperial chef's knife was cut in half. The knife is the tool of the imperial chef. Breaking the tool means blocking the path to wealth. Does this Hong Yi want to block our imperial kitchen's path to wealth? Our imperial chefs are the noblest profession. The knife is the lifeblood of the imperial chef. After saying that, he took out a golden knife, wanting to find Hong Yi to fight. The result was that after posing in a cool, handsome way that he thought was cool, he waited until midnight, with his nose running, and Hong Yi didn't even bother with him. He didn't even come. He sneezed and fell into the well himself. The next day, the prince was busy having people restore the burned imperial garden when he suddenly discovered a flint stone on the ground. But they didn't need such a large fire that night when they were barbecuing. This proved that the arsonist was someone else, clearly wanting to harm Fu Zhu. The two of them immediately took the evidence to find the emperor. According to the Heavenly Fairy, in heaven, fingerprints can be used to identify the perpetrator. Furthermore, the fingerprints of every person in the world are different. How would they know what fingerprints are in this era? Fu Zhu quickly shared knowledge with them. But in this era, how do you identify fingerprints? That night, she began to act. After all, she was now a heavenly fairy. Whatever she said, these stupid people would believe her. Holding a stone and a mirror, Fu Zhu, relying on the fact that ancient people didn't understand, made up a story that made everyone believe that what she held in her hand was a treasure from heaven that could detect the true perpetrator of the Imperial Garden arson case by imprinting their fingerprints on it. And the fingerprints of each person were different. These words made Ruan Qing feel uneasy. She was about to leave, but Lan Er stopped her, using the emperor's name to force her to leave her fingerprints as well. Fu Zhu saw this opportunity and took immediate revenge. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Ruan Qing had to maintain her image and obediently leave her fingerprints. Next, they just had to wait for the perpetrator to come and destroy the evidence. But unexpectedly, the one who came was the Empress Dowager to ask questions. Sure enough, there was someone else outside. The two of them quickly gave chase, but only saw a figure and didn't find the perpetrator. They were also free to climb onto the roof of the building, to look at the stars and drink Coca-Cola. Suddenly, Fu Zhu seemed to realize something, and quickly motioned for the emperor to look down. They saw Hong Yi, standing and peeing against the wall. This scene made the emperor angry. He turned his head and saw the eunuch and the little maid flirting. The emperor became angry, just like a boss who watches security camera footage and finds his employees surfing the web during work hours. He came back to the room after hanging out all night and still had a feast. The next day, Fu Zhu woke up with a dazed expression, holding her stomach and frowning because of her period. But in this era, she quickly called the maid for help. But no matter how much she explained, Lan Er didn't understand, and she was about to report to the Empress Dowager. Seeing that she couldn't explain clearly, Fu Zhu pointed to the bedsheet. Lan Er immediately understood her, and soon brought a piece of cloth from inside, which was for the kitchen. Fu Zhu thought it was unsanitary, but there was no other way. When the Heavenly Fairy was on her period, the Imperial Kitchen even kept track of her menstrual cycle, and every month they would cook ginger and brown sugar water for the women in the palace. And there was also a professional acupuncture service. Now the ginger and brown sugar water was also brought in. While she was drinking the water, she wasn't paying attention, and the imperial physician immediately inserted a needle, making her scream in pain. Unexpectedly, it was very effective. At lunchtime, looking at the table full of delicacies, the emperor remembered the scene of Fu Zhu and Yun Li eating together, and his heart was filled with envy. He felt sour no matter what he ate, and immediately came up with a wicked plan to get revenge on Fu Zhu. Knowing that she was on her period, the emperor deliberately prepared all spicy food. He ate happily, but wouldn't let Fu Zhu touch a single thing, only leaving a bowl of plain porridge in front of her. Looking at their bickering, the old eunuch stood in the middle with a knowing smile. Fu Zhu was aggrieved and could only eat the porridge. She suddenly discovered there were jujubes, or blood replenishment inside. It turned out that the emperor had cooked it himself. He wanted to nourish her, so he specially added bird's nest and red dates. Fu Zhu said the porridge wasn't as good as the one cooked by the imperial kitchen, but she drank it all in one gulp. She even wanted another bowl. Under the emperor's attentive care, Fu Zhu's period passed quickly. Unexpectedly, the imperial advisor suddenly arrived that day. He said he wanted to give her a great gift, clearly with no good intentions. The imperial advisor wanted to give Fu Zhu a huge mansion, and it was a house in the capital. Fu Zhu immediately felt she was going to become a rich woman, but then again, no matter how rich the imperial advisor was, he wouldn't be so foolish as to give away such a large mansion for free. He must have some purpose. But the imperial advisor said, "I'm just admiring your talent and otherworldly temperament." This flattery made Fu Zhu feel elated, so she went to see the mansion. Sure enough, it was huge and magnificent. Thinking that she was still young and had picked up such a great bargain, she immediately went in to inspect it. But unexpectedly, she saw the imperial advisor's men cleaning the entire house of the owner of the mansion. At this point, Fu Zhu realized how dangerous this era was. She also witnessed the ruthlessness of the imperial advisor, and the emperor had also been a victim before, witnessing the death of her master. Now Fuzhou was being threatened. The emperor, who had always been patient, finally fought back. He wrote an edict with his own hand, using the Heavenly Fairy's name to cancel the engagement with the imperial advisor's daughter. He didn't want to be looked down upon by the imperial advisor anymore. This made Fuzhou very worried. She had witnessed the imperial advisor's cruelty. If they openly confronted him now, both she and the emperor's lives would be in danger. Meanwhile, in the imperial kitchen, everyone was holding their noses and running out, desperately trying to escape. It turned out the imperial chef was in the kitchen, researching a new dish. Lan Er curiously entered. "Imperial chef, what are you doing?" "This is a new dish that I've been working hard to research. It's called smoked tofu." It turned out the strong stench in the air was all from this plate of tofu. Lan Er was very curious. How could you eat something so smelly? She watched as the imperial chef added chili sauce to the plate of tofu. Lan Er became the first tester, taking a bite of this smelly tofu. Unexpectedly, it was crispy on the outside, soft and smooth on the inside, and combined with the chili sauce, it was surprisingly delicious. Meanwhile, Yunli heard that the emperor wanted to use Fuzhou's name to issue an edict to cancel the engagement with Ruan Qing, which would definitely put Fuzhou in danger. But the emperor didn't care about that, he just wanted to cancel the engagement to pursue his true love. This Yunli was always concerned about Fuzhou. Could he be a rival in love? The emperor became increasingly angry. Why is this little brother smarter than him? He was more outstanding than him when they were studying. Even the emperor had considered changing the crown prince. Fortunately, the Empress Dowager was good at talking, so she kept the throne for her foolish son. Meanwhile, Fuzhou was also worried about this. If she actually got involved, she feared her days of eating well and dressing well were over. Yunli suddenly rushed over to protect Fuzhou. He decided to secretly take her out of the palace, to avoid attracting attention. Both of them changed into maids' clothes. Yunli said he knew a secret passage, guaranteed to get them out of the palace safely. But when they got there, it turned out to be a dog hole. Are you serious? Letting the Heavenly Fairy crawl through a dog hole with you? What kind of respect is that? Between life and respect, which is more important? This prince will show you first. The prince, dressed in a pink princess dress, skillfully crawled out of the dog hole. Fuzhou hesitated for a moment, but still felt that life was more important than face. Unexpectedly, as she bent down, the luggage behind her got stuck. Yunli even wanted to use his strength to pull this big radish out. The two of them were about to continue their efforts when they heard voices from afar. Two eunuchs were walking and telling ghost stories, but before they finished their story, they were scared by Fuzhou and Yunli pretending to be ghosts. They ran for their lives. Now they could safely crawl through the hole. Lan Er pushed from behind. Yunli pulled from the front, but Fuzhou was still stuck in the hole. She couldn't get out. The more she struggled, the more she suddenly wanted to go to the toilet. "Let go, my stomach hurts. I want to go to the toilet." "Hold on a little longer, we're almost out of the palace. Why can't you understand what I'm saying? I want to go to the toilet." At this moment, Lan Er said, it turned out she wanted to help Fuzhou avoid attending the morning court tomorrow, so she put laxatives in her food. She thought she would have diarrhea all night and would be able to take a sick leave, so she didn't need to go up to the hall and helped her to solve her problem quickly. The two of them used all their remaining strength and finally pulled her out of the dog hole. "Oh my God, don't touch me." The eunuch, who had been scared, turned around and called for the guards, just in time to catch the two of them. Although she was about to pee her pants, she ran away very quickly. Unexpectedly, the guard used his spear to stab straight at Fuzhou. This action angered Yunli, who kicked the guard away with one swift kick. The guards, realizing their mistake, immediately knelt down and apologized. Fuzhou was unharmed, thanks to the luggage bag she was carrying, which had saved her. She took out her phone and looked at it, her heart filled with sorrow. At this time, Yunli suddenly became serious and said to her, "Traveling back in time to the ancient era, and being confessed to by a disguised prince. This isn't just a surprise anymore, it's a shock. I'll protect you with my life. If anyone tries to hurt you, I'll take the hit." Fuzhou blushed and quickly pretended to look at her phone. In the end, the two of them still couldn't escape from the palace successfully. Early the next morning, Fuzhou carried the imperial edict to court, ready to announce the cancellation of the emperor's engagement, which would also mean openly declaring war on the national teacher. Unexpectedly, When she read the edict, its content was different from what they had discussed. It turned out that the emperor knew she was being threatened and had decided to sacrifice his own marital happiness to save her life. As for that evil woman, she was playing a treacherous game. As soon as she used Fu Zhu to get engaged, she turned her back on her, pretending not to recognize her. Not only that, but she even attacked Lan Er. Ruan Qing continued to provoke Fu Zhu, making her speechless and angry but unable to retaliate. Who could do anything? After all, Ruan Qing's father was the national teacher. I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't go seeking death. Stop being so reckless. Although Ruan Qing didn't understand what it meant, she knew it was a provocation. She immediately ordered Bai Er to go to the imperial kitchen and cause trouble. Bai Er, relying on the fact that her mistress would become the future empress, spoke arrogantly, her chin almost touching the sky. She ordered the imperial cooks. From today on, prepare meals for Ruan Qing, according to the empress's standard. The head imperial cook was not someone easily bullied. Moreover, Bai Er had previously bullied his goddess, Lan Er. So he ordered the kitchen helpers to bring in a basin of black water, extinguishing Bai Er's arrogant spirit. You just wait, I'll report to the second Missy and have you all executed. As soon as Ruan Qing entered the room, she smelled the foul odor of Bai Er. Bai Er added salt to the wound, recounting what had just happened, saying that the cooks in the imperial kitchen had insulted her, saying she wasn't worthy of being empress, and that the basin of water was actually meant for her. If I don't avenge this insult, I'll have no face in the palace. Unexpectedly, Ruan Qing slapped her. Are you teaching me how to do things? Meanwhile, the head imperial cook specially prepared smoked tofu for Lan Er. Fu Zhu tasted it. Isn't this stinky tofu? We have plenty of it. The three were happily eating when a kitchen helper suddenly rushed in, saying something had happened in the imperial kitchen. It turned out that Ruan Qing had started to retaliate, claiming there were worms in the food. For the imperial kitchen, this was a serious matter, one that could lead to their beheading. A worm that large, even if the cooks were blind, they could see it, knowing it was a deliberate frame-up. But because Ruan Qing's father was the national teacher, everyone dared not offend her. Seeing the head imperial cook being beaten, Fu Zhu wanted to go find the emperor for help, but Ruan Qing threatened her. If you dare tell anyone, today I'll eat worms, tomorrow I'll eat poison. I'll make sure it's blamed on you. What can you do to me? Soon, the head imperial cook was beaten until he vomited blood. Luckily, Yun Li arrived in time to rescue him. Ruan Qing, wanting to maintain her image as a fragile white lotus, had to stop. The head imperial cook had been entangled in this situation because he wanted to defend Lan Er. The kitchen helpers started chiming in. Big brother, you've forgotten yourself for justice. You must have captivated Miss Lan Er. Don't talk nonsense. I'm the most handsome man in the imperial kitchen. Countless women are smitten with me. She's just one of them. The words of his two younger brothers made the head imperial cook actually believe that Lan Er was attracted to his handsome looks. Lan Er, out of guilt, took care of him a little, and he was already thinking about what to name their future children. But there are two rules I need to make clear to you. First, I'm the only son in 3 generations of our family, so you must bear me a son to continue our lineage. Second, to ensure the prosperity of our family, you cannot interfere with my taking concubines. Of course, I won't take too many, at most 5 concubines. Head imperial cook, are you being delusional again? That night, Lan Er accidentally bumped into a palace maid carrying things. Among the clothes, she discovered a green outfit, the same one Fu Zhu said the arsonist was wearing. Lan Er secretly followed, but unexpectedly, she was attacked. The young palace maid, being chased, struggled to make it back to her own palace. Unfortunately, her owner from a different world was unreliable, wearing headphones and listening to music, completely oblivious to her cries for help. It wasn't until the next morning that people discovered Lan Er was missing. Fu Zhu carried a portrait and asked around, but no one had seen Lan Er. Seeing her heart broken, the emperor came to comfort her. It's just a palace maid, isn't it? I'll give you a few more. But in Fu Zhu's eyes, Lan Er was not just a palace maid, but her best friend. The emperor, having never had friends since childhood, didn't understand what she meant at all. Meanwhile, the head imperial cook and his brothers found the guard. Hearing that Lan Er liked Hong Yi, he immediately assumed that Hong Yi had kidnapped her, and strange fantasies popped into his head. So the group of cooks and the group of guards fought tooth and nail. Although they were both injured, It was clear that Hong Yi was not that kind of person. To find Lan Er, Fu Zhu spent all her fortune, planning to offer a reward for any clues. The head imperial cook, wanting to find Lan Er, used all his savings that he'd been putting aside for concubines. Yunli also tried his best to help, but Fu Zhu criticized him for being stingy. How much can these tattered paintings sell for? They're really not worth much. This one's worth 500 taels, this one's a bit more expensive, 2,000 taels. Unexpectedly, the prince was so humble. A single painting was worth several lifetimes of the head imperial cook's salary, yet he remained indifferent. Not worth much, not worth much. Everyone just goes ahead and sells them. Money is everything. The people who came to offer clues even lined up, but they were all just there for the money. The clues they provided were completely unreliable. Yunli was still generous with his rewards. There was even an elderly woman with poor eyesight who came to offer clues. The entire day passed, and they still didn't hear anything reliable. The emperor, meanwhile, started feeling down at night. During the day, Fu Zhu had said that he didn't understand friendship, and he felt uncomfortable about it. Even Hong Yi had friends he'd played with since childhood, while he didn't even have a friend in name. I wish I had someone like Hong Yi. The moon is so beautiful tonight. How about we go and relieve our sorrow a bit? Relieve it? Why go to the cold palace? Are the two men still so shy? The two of them went to the dry well, and as they were about to start, they discovered Lan Er in the well. They found her, but her life hung by a thread. The physician said she could survive, but whether she would wake up was up to fate. To help Lan Er wake up, the head imperial cook took out a box of 1,000-year-old ginseng. The kitchen helpers quickly stopped him. Stealing ginseng is a capital offense. It's not worth doing this for a mere palace maid. Unexpectedly, the ginseng box was a box within a box, and after a lot of effort, they finally opened the last layer to see its true form. It was just a ginseng root. The head imperial cook used the ginseng root to make chicken soup for Lan Er, and sure enough, she woke up. After learning the truth from Lan Er, Fu Zhu was furious and went to settle the score with Ruan Qing. Fu Zhu taught Ruan Qing what a right hook was and charged in for a fight. Her modern-day exercise wasn't a waste after all. Beating a woman who never exercised was like beating a baby chick. After being beaten, Ruan Qing ran home to tell on her, crying to her father. But Fu Zhu, relying on the knowledge she had learned before traveling back in time, dug a canal to bring water for the emperor, solving the drought problem and achieving a great feat. Even the national teacher didn't dare touch her now. He could only scold his daughter. I sent you to the palace to befriend the heavenly maiden and gain the emperor's favor. What have you done? Ruan Qing saw that her father didn't defend her and couldn't swallow this anger. She returned home and beat up Bai Er. The daughter was ashamed, while the national teacher was embarrassed by her. He sent people with a bunch of gold, silver, and jewels to apologize to Fu Zhu. It seemed like, whether in ancient times or modern times, there was a bad habit of using money to solve everything. Fu Zhu gave all the money to Lan Er as compensation for mental distress. Unexpectedly that night, they dared to do something shady. They took advantage of everyone being asleep and kidnapped Fu Zhu to the dungeon. Ruan Qing arrogantly taunted her, and even the emperor became her puppet. Bai Er's face was full of smugness as she dipped a handkerchief in sandalwood water and slowly moved towards Fu Zhu. The punishments in ancient times were truly terrifying. The wet handkerchief pressed against the face, layer upon layer, and the prisoner would gradually suffocate. Fu Zhu woke up with a start. It was just a dream, but she still hadn't recovered. Bai Er, the one who had tortured her in her dream, was standing next to her, inviting her to the national teacher's mansion for a feast. Even a fool could tell it was a trap. But it wasn't an invitation, it was a kidnapping. Looking at the delicious food in front of her, she felt like it was her last meal. She didn't dare eat the food, so she would just drink a glass of wine. It probably wouldn't be poisoned, right? She took a small sip, but as soon as the wine touched her lips, Ruan Qing suddenly fainted. The maids cried out, saying that Ruan Qing had been poisoned by Fu Zhu. The national teacher went to the emperor, causing a ruckus, and the emperor had to use a delaying tactic and imprisoned Fu Zhu in the dungeon. Even in prison, Fu Zhu lived comfortably. The prince grilled skewers for her through the bars, while she ate happily inside. At night, as Fu Zhu lay on her bed, leisurely biting her nails, the prison door suddenly opened. It turned out that the emperor was worried about her and had disguised himself as a guard to visit. Hong Yi suddenly entered. and said that Ruan Qing had also come to the dungeon. The emperor quickly hid in the pile of hay. Fu Zhu, out of habit, sat down, just in time to avoid being seen by Ruan Qing. Because she had eaten a lot of garlic, Fu Zhu kept farting. At first, she wanted to make the evil woman confess her crimes, but unexpectedly, Ruan Qing guessed that the emperor was there and pretended to be innocent, denying it. Is that true or not? The stench almost made the evil woman vomit. She quickly said what needed to be said, even swearing on the lives of her whole family. She was truly too dutiful. Even Fu Zhu had a bit of trust. As soon as Ruan Qing left, Fu Zhu turned around and called out to the emperor. It was only then that she discovered that he had fainted from her fart. She almost became the first emperor in the world to be executed because of a fart. Back at home, Ruan Qing called Bai Er over. She had found someone to take the blame, putting all the fault on Bai Er. She forced Bai Er to act out a scene for her, saying that after Bai Er's execution, she would definitely take good care of Bai Er's family. But then she secretly ordered people to execute all of Bai Er's family. Bai Er was tricked and could only obediently listen, deliberately letting Fu Zhu see. Then, she took the opportunity to assassinate Fu Zhu. Unexpectedly, the emperor stepped in to take the blow. This action frightened Ruan Qing to the point that her jaw almost dropped. The emperor's wound became infected, and he had a persistent high fever. Due to the limited conditions of ancient times, even the physician was helpless. Fu Zhu suddenly remembered that she had brought antibiotics with her when she traveled back in time, and it might be able to save the emperor's life. She quickly took out the medicine, but the Empress Dowager didn't dare let the emperor drink this strange-looking medicine. Even the highly esteemed physician had never seen anything like it. Ancient people had never seen such strange-looking medicine, let alone give it to the emperor. So that night, Fu Zhu had the prince pretend to be sick to distract the guards. Then she sneaked in, took out the antibiotics, poured the powder from the capsules into water, and gave it to the unconscious emperor. The next day, the emperor's fever subsided. Fu Zhu took care of the emperor all day, and she was so tired that she fell asleep on the bed. Ruan Qing came to wake her up. Look at you, you're drooling in your sleep. Go wash your face, or the emperor will see and laugh at you. After Fu Zhu was tricked away, Ruan Qing went to wake the emperor up, then quickly knelt beside the bed. It was clear that she had been resting at home all day, but she pretended to have taken care of the emperor all night. When it comes to being a bad person, she's the best. Then Ruan Qing went to the Empress Dowager and snitched, telling her everything about the head imperial cook stealing ginseng. Before being taken to the execution ground, the head imperial cook, with shackles on his hands, asked to make a last meal for Lan Er. He used various vegetables and fruits to make multicolored flour. Knowing that Lan Er loved sweets, he made a rainbow cake. The head imperial cook was taken to the execution ground, and the executioner was none other than his rival, Hong Yi. It turned out that he had overheard Ruan Qing bribing the executioner to purposely dull the blade, so that the head imperial cook would suffer. Therefore, Hong Yi decided to execute his rival himself, ensuring a quick and painless death. Fu Zhu understood that this was Ruan Qing, trying to intimidate her, and perhaps she wouldn't live much longer. So Fu Zhu went to see the emperor and confessed her true identity. Looking at the bustling streets and the paintings and the airplanes, and cars that he'd never seen before, he thought it was a heavenly world. I'm not a heavenly maiden at all. I'm from thousands of years in the future. Fu Zhu told him. Thousands of years later, the world has no more wars, no more suffering. Everyone lives a peaceful and happy life. It's not a fairyland, it's a real world. Through Fu Zhu's description, the emperor felt like he was witnessing the modern world, but he also understood that Fu Zhu didn't belong to his era, and one day, she would leave. Sure enough, not long after, the evil woman bared her claws again towards the naive female lead. Now the world is unstable. In ancient times, didn't you guys often use living people to sacrifice to the heavens? I think the heavenly maiden would be perfect for it. The emperor quickly dispatched Yun Lai and the remaining cooks from the imperial kitchen to secretly take Fu Zhu out of the palace at night. Sure enough, by nightfall, the cooks all sacrificed themselves to help her escape. The next day, the emperor, accompanied only by Hong Yi, invited Ruan Qing to the Cheng'an Pavilion. He wanted to take this opportunity to deal with this wicked woman. Unexpectedly, Lan Er was faster than him, kidnapping Ruan Qing on the way. Wasn't this jumping into the fire? Lan Er was immediately captured by the guards. Seeing Lan Er in danger, Hong Yi, Faced with the choice between love and duty, decisively chose love. He ran very fast, but still arrived a step too late. After a fierce battle, they both got injured. Ruan Qing approached the emperor and poured wine for him, but she didn't know that she had fallen into his trap. "What are you laughing at?" "I'm laughing at you. Up here on the pavilion, everyone will see that you poured poison for me." A dignified emperor, who wanted to eliminate the evil woman, had to resort to poisoning himself. Not to mention giving up his throne. Even his own life was dispensable. He even felt like it was cool. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, spraying it directly in the face of the evil woman. Not a drop wasted. At this time, Fu Zhu also returned, hugged the emperor who was about to die, and cried bitterly. The Empress Dowager, losing her son, finally realized the true face of Ruan Qing and pushed her to jump off the pavilion. When Fu Zhu woke up, she was back in the bathroom of her school. The experience of traveling back in time felt like a dream. What is this girl doing, sleeping in the bathroom? Fu Zhu quickly ran back to class and asked her best friend what the ending of the comic was. But the answer she got was different from before she traveled back in time. The previous ending was that the emperor was killed, but the ending now was to be continued. From then on, Fu Zhu studied diligently, from being an average student to a top student, and she also took advantage of her free time to continue drawing the comic. In her story, the emperor was saved, and the prince led his troops to punish the national teacher. Her comic was also chosen by the editor for official publication. The editor also invited her to his office for tea, preparing to introduce her to the author of the comic. Unexpectedly, the author of the comic was her deskmate, who looked exactly like the emperor. The atmosphere was very romantic, but then she suddenly farted. But this didn't affect their feelings. Behind the scenes, Lan Er in the modern world also met the modern-day head imperial cook. He was still the same warm guy who always made sweets for her. This is the end of the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.